The US dollar has long been the undisputed heavyweight champion of global finance, anchoring international trade and serving as the world's reserve currency. But in recent years, the tides are shifting. From China's digital yuan to increasing alliances among BRICS nations and the rise of cryptocurrencies, there's a growing chorus of challenges to the dollar's dominance. It's not just the usual suspects in the global south questioning the greenback. US domestic policies, like Trump's tariffs and talks of a central bank digital currency, are fueling this transformation. Today, we're breaking down the quiet war on the US dollar. What does it mean for global markets? And more importantly, what's next? For over 75 years, the US dollar has been the backbone of global finance. Its story began in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference, where world leaders gathered to design a new financial order. The dollar emerged as the cornerstone, pegged to gold at $35 per ounce, while other currencies were pegged to the dollar. This established trust in the dollar's strength and stability. But why oil? Oil is the lifeblood of modern economies, and by anchoring it to the dollar, the US secured unparalleled global influence. It meant nations needed dollars to fuel their economies, reinforcing its dominance. Today, the dollar still reigns supreme. It accounts for approximately 58% of global foreign exchange reserves, down from 70% 2 decades ago. This decline is significant, but 58% still makes the dollar the dominant currency by a wide margin. For comparison, the euro holds about 20%, while the Chinese yuan accounts for less than 3%. But here's where things get interesting. The dollar's dominance hasn't come without consequences. Its central role means the US can wield incredible economic power, like imposing sanctions or influencing global markets. Yet, these same actions have prompted many nations to seek alternatives, as we'll explore later. From Bretton Woods to petrodollars, the dollar has ruled the financial world, but the cracks in its armor are becoming harder to ignore. In 2000, almost every single oil transaction, 99.9%, was settled in US dollars. That's over $1.5 trillion in oil trade conducted exclusively in USD. Fast forward to 2024, and things have drastically shifted. Today, roughly 80.8% of oil transactions, around $4 trillion worth, are settled in US dollars. The remaining 19.2%, or about $950 billion, is now settled in other currencies like the Chinese yuan, which nearly 10.1%, and the euro at 5.1%. This is a massive change in global trade dynamics. The US dollar's dominance hasn't just been supported by its history, it's also shaped by the policies of its government. But over the last few decades, these policies have created ripple effects, some intentional, others less so. In 2018, former President Trump launched a wave of tariffs aimed at reducing America's trade deficit with China. These tariffs, which started at 10% and later rose to 25% on $200 billion worth of goods, were designed to bring manufacturing back to the US. But the reality wasn't so simple. While some industries benefited, the tariffs strained relationships with key trade partners. China responded by reducing its reliance on the US dollar in trade, settling more transactions in yuan with countries like Russia and Brazil. Other countries took note. Russia, facing sanctions, began shifting away from the dollar, increasing trade in yuan and euros. In 2019, the share of Russia's reserves held in dollars fell from over 40% to less than 25%. This shift wasn't just about sanctions, it was a signal to the world. The message was clear: dependency on the dollar could be a vulnerability. China and Russia deepened their economic ties, signing agreements to use local currencies for trade. Meanwhile, BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, accelerated their push for a multipolar financial system. This shift isn't just symbolic. As more nations adopt alternative currencies for trade, the demand for the dollar declines, and as demand falls, the dollar's value and influence could begin to erode. The US has also used the dollar's centrality as a tool for enforcing sanctions, cutting off countries like Iran and Venezuela from the global financial system. While effective, this strategy has come at a cost, pushing even traditional allies to consider alternatives. In 2022, the European Union proposed its own payment system to bypass US sanctions, demonstrating that even allies are wary of the dollar's dominance. From tariffs to sanctions, US policies have reinforced the dollar's influence, but also planted seeds of resistance. These ripple effects are reshaping global trade and challenging the greenback in ways the world hasn't seen before. The dollar's dominance isn't just being challenged by foreign governments, it's also facing pressure from the digital revolution. Cryptocurrencies and central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, are reshaping how the world thinks about money. Bitcoin, launched in 2009, was envisioned as a way to bypass traditional banking systems, a currency for the digital age. Today, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum have grown into a trillion-dollar market, with Bitcoin alone holding over 40% of the crypto market share. But what makes cryptocurrencies unique is decentralization. Unlike the dollar or any fiat currency, crypto isn't controlled by a central authority, which is where the blockchain fits in. This has made it appealing as a hedge against inflation and financial instability. Take El Salvador, for example. In 2021, it became the first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, hoping to reduce dependency on the dollar. While the move faced criticism, it highlights how nations are experimenting with alternatives. El Salvador's adoption has been bumpy, but it's a sign that some countries see crypto as a path to greater financial independence. The global financial landscape is undergoing a significant transformation with the rise of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. By the end of 2023, over 130 central banks, representing 98% of global GDP, had initiated programs to develop CBDCs. These digital currencies, issued by central banks, aim to modernize financial systems and enhance payment efficiencies. However, their widespread adoption could lead to a more fragmented international monetary system, potentially challenging the US dollar's long-standing dominance. Simultaneously, the rise of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin presents alternative avenues for international transactions. As these digital assets gain acceptance, they could diminish reliance on the US dollar for global trade and reserves. The US Federal Reserve has acknowledged that the introduction of foreign CBDCs and the proliferation of cryptocurrencies might erode the dollar's role as a medium of exchange. This shift could have significant implications for the US economy, including reduced influence over global financial systems and potential challenges to implementing effective monetary policies. In response to these developments, the US government is exploring the implementation of its own CBDC. President Biden's Executive Order 14067 emphasizes the need for research and development of a US digital currency to maintain the nation's financial leadership and address potential challenges posed by foreign digital currencies and cryptocurrencies. China currently leads the charge with its digital yuan, already used by over 260 million people in pilot programs. In 2022 alone, transactions on the digital yuan platform exceeded $13 billion. And as the global financial landscape shifts, the US is actively engaging in research and policy development to adapt to these changes and ensure the continued strength of the dollar in the evolving economy. CBDCs and cryptocurrencies could weaken the dollar's dominance by creating viable alternatives for global trade. Imagine a future where oil is traded in Bitcoin or settled using a CBDC like the digital yuan. For the dollar, that would mean less demand and potentially lower value. A pivotal moment occurred at the 2024 BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia, where member countries discussed creating a multi-currency system to challenge the US dollar's dominance. This initiative includes the BRICS Cross-Border Payment Initiative, BCBPI, enabling trade using national currencies and developing an alternative to the SWIFT payment system. Such developments indicate that the BRICS bloc is becoming a formidable force in reshaping global finance. Their collective economic influence and coordinated strategies pose a significant challenge to the dollar's supremacy. Beyond BRICS, several factors are contributing to the potential weakening of the US dollar, including recent US fiscal policies, including significant budget deficits and expansive monetary measures, have raised concerns about the dollar's long-term stability. Such policies can lead to inflationary pressures, diminishing the dollar's purchasing power and its appeal as a reserve currency. Additionally, the US' use of economic sanctions as a foreign policy tool has prompted targeted nations to seek alternatives to the dollar to mitigate economic vulnerabilities. This has accelerated efforts to develop independent financial systems and reduce reliance on the US currency. In response to global economic uncertainties, central banks worldwide have been increasing their gold reserves. This move is seen as a strategy to hedge against the dollar's volatility and potential decline. These dynamics suggest a gradual shift away from the US dollar's hegemony. While the dollar remains dominant, the combined effect of these factors could lead to a more diversified international monetary system in the future. Imagine a world where the US dollar no longer holds its unchallenged throne. What would that mean for everyday Americans and the global community? For decades, the dollar's dominance has granted the US significant sway over international finance. But as global dynamics shift, this supremacy faces challenges. For Americans, a diminished dollar could mean higher prices for imported goods, making everyday items more expensive. On the flip side, US exports might become more competitive, potentially revitalizing domestic manufacturing and job growth. Globally, countries might enjoy reduced dependency on US monetary policy, gaining greater economic autonomy. This could lead to more balanced trade relationships and diversified financial systems. However, such a transition isn't without risks. The stability of a multipolar financial system would hinge on international cooperation and robust economic policies. As the tides of global finance shift, staying informed and adaptable becomes essential. The future holds both challenges and opportunities, and understanding these dynamics will be key to navigating the evolving economic landscape.